Alright, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and today we're doing a review for Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, aka Stone Ocean. That's right, this is the final part that I'm rewatching, and then after this I get to finally see Steel Ball Run after, I think it's been over a month already since it came out, so that's going to be exciting. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing now Stone Ocean, so let us just get into it, starting off with the plot. So Stone Ocean, it is split into like 3 different parts from basically when Netflix released it. They released it in like 3 different batches, and so yeah, the first part of Stone Ocean, basically the plot revolves around Jolene Cujo, Jotaro Cujo's daughter. She ends up getting arrested, sent to Green Dolphin Street Jail, or prison, whatever they called it, and so the first part basically kind of follows her navigating around the jail, kind of like getting used to it and stuff, like learning her way around the jail. She meets like a lot of people that end up helping her out: Hermes, Foo Fighters, Emporio, Anastasia, Weather Reporter, all those characters, and she ends up like finding out about the plot that is against her and Jotaro, that is being conducted by Father Pucci, where basically Father Pucci, he is the villain of the part. He knew Dio in the past, like he is another one of like Dio's kind of subordinates, and basically his goal is he wants to obtain heaven. That is his ultimate goal. And so it's like this really convoluted, complicated process of how to actually do it, so I'm not really going to go into the specifics of how it involves like this green baby and like specific words and stuff. But anyway, the point is he wants to achieve heaven. The way he can do that is basically Dio knew how to obtain heaven. He wrote it down in a notebook. Jotaro, after defeating Dio, ended up finding the notebook, and then he himself like obtained the knowledge through the notebook, but then he destroyed the notebook. So now Pucci stands White Snake or Pale Snake, based on what version you're watching, the dub or the sub. I watched it in the dub, and so yeah, they refer to it as Pale Snake in the dub. Anyway, he uses his stand ability in order to, he can steal 2 types of discs, which is basically a memory disc of a person or a stand disc if they are a stand user. So basically, Pucci got Jolene arrested in the first place through like manipulations of like he paid off like judges and lawyers and stuff, and as well as like Jolene's ex-boyfriend. So anyway, there was a plot. There was a plot, basically not a plot. There was a plot in order to get Jolene arrested, and from there it is to bait Jotaro Cujo, because it's very difficult to actually track down Jotaro Cujo these days. So they bait Jotaro into showing up at the prison, so that way Pale Snake can end up taking both Jotaro's stand disc as well as his stand disc as well as his memory disc, basically. So that is what happens. And then for the first part, basically, of Stone Ocean, you have basically, it is Jolene. She's trying to get back both discs from Pucci. So she does, by the end of the first part, she does manage to successfully get back the stand disc of Jotaro. She managed to get back Star Platinum, and through the help of the Speedwagon Foundation, she does end up sending it over to Jotaro, because there was also a point where it's like after Jotaro got his disc taken away, Jolene still managed to get him out of prison. So yeah, the part ends with basically Jotaro. He has his stand disc now, but he still does not have his memory disc, so he's not awake yet because he doesn't have his memories back. So that is how the first part ends. The second part is basically kind of just a continuation of some more of the prison stuff, but this time specifically it is more so Pucci enacting his actual plan in order to bring about heaven. And it's again, it's very convoluted. It involves like this green baby that is like infects all these prisoners with this like tree infection thing, and Pucci has to like whisper words to the baby, and yeah, it's pretty convoluted, and I'm not really going to get into it. But basically, part 2 very much focuses on like Pucci kind of continuing to enact his plan of bringing about heaven, and then the part ends. I'm trying to remember specifically part 2 how it ended. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it ends with, I think they escape from the jail in part 2. But I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna actually check real quick. Just give me a second here. Right, yeah. So I checked. I remembered it. Yeah. So the final confrontation is Jolene against a stand user jailhouse lock, which she then defeats, and then through her stand power, she manages to, Jolene and Hermes and Emporio as well, they manage to escape from prison. Eventually, also Anastasia and Weather Reporter, they also escape, and so. Yeah, part 2 is basically just the whole like thing throughout the entire, like all 3 parts of Stone Ocean is basically the goal of Pucci is to use Jotaro's memory disc in order to bring about heaven, and Jolene's goal is to basically stop Pucci from doing that and also getting back her father's discs. So, and then part 3 basically follows, apparently Dio, he had like 3 more sons besides Giorno. So we get introduced to 3 more of Dio's children, and then Pucci works with them in order to basically stop Jolene and the rest of the gang and stuff. And yeah, so that happens, and then but besides that, also just it's a continuation of Pucci just trying to bring about heaven through whatever methods he's using. It's like go to this specific location, which is in Cape Canaveral, I think it was called, the Kennedy Space Center, basically. And then from there, yeah, he ends up, his stand, Pale Snake, ends up turning into Sea Moon, and then Sea Moon ends up eventually turning into Made in Heaven. And so then Made in Heaven, finally, he gets Made in Heaven as his stand. And then so Made in Heaven, it's like this really incredibly OP stand where it's like, it's extremely fast. It's like this fastest stand that I think we've seen up until this point. I mean, the world still, when it uses time freeze, and I guess it's faster than that, but anyway, so the final confrontation now happens. Jotaro, at this point, he's back because I forgot to mention at some point they did get Jotaro's memory disk back. So Jotaro is back, the Anastasia's back. At some point earlier, by the way, Foo Fighters died. The Weather Reporter also died. I should probably mention spoiler alerts earlier, but if you're watching a recap of the part, then you would have probably clicked off already, so if you don't want to get spoiled. So yeah, all the characters that are currently still alive, they're all together, they're fighting Father Pucci's Made in Heaven. Basically, skip ahead a bit, it's revealed that Father Pucci, like the ultimate thing of heaven is to kind of, it's kind of weird, it's like to bring the universe, like reset it kind of up until like here, the current universe, basically go all the way to the timeline at the end of the universe to restart the universe, go back to the point that they're at in order for everyone to like obtain the knowledge of what is going to happen in the future, basically. So that way, because if like they'll know like when they get hurt, when they die and stuff, and then Father Pucci, he says basically that like if everyone knows what's going to happen to them, then it will give people happiness, because it's like they'll be able to accept all the like stuff that is going to occur to them. And so that is basically his ultimate goal, to help humanity. He views it that way. So yeah, that is pretty much his goal. And so then basically he does manage to use Made in Heaven to basically kill. Jotaro dies, Anastasia dies, Hermes dies, Jolene dies. Basically Emporio is the only one left at this point, and then Emporio ends up in this new reset universe. It's a different universe now, and so he does still have the Weather Reporter's stand. Weather Reporter's stand is also like incredibly powerful. There's also, I forgot to mention, this whole side plot of like Weather Reporter. I'll get more into this with the character ranking of like what happened, what each character is kind of all about in the parts. But yeah, Weather Reporter, there was this whole backstory where it's like him and Father Pucci, they're actually brothers and stuff, and it's like the Weather Reporter didn't know it, but he was dating his like Pucci's sister, which would also make it his sister. So it's this whole thing. I'm not really going to get into it right now. I'll get more into it during the character ranking. But then basically, yeah, there was a whole confrontation that happened. Pucci ends up killing Weather Reporter. Weather Reporter ends up giving his stand disc in the last minute to Jolene. Jolene gives it to Emporio, and then Emporio finally uses it in the final confrontation against Pucci. He uses Weather Reporter's ability to create like 100% pure oxygen, which does manage to defeat Pucci. And then from there, he ends up, so Pucci is now dead. And then, yeah, I think the universe, so the whole like Made in Heaven, the actual universe reset, I think it didn't fully, I actually had to look this up after the fact because I was a bit confused on how like it worked, but I think apparently that means the universe reset didn't fully complete. And so that now they're in a new universe where Emporio is now in a new universe. Apparently, everyone actually did die. So Jolene is dead, Anastasia's dead, Jotaro's dead, Hermes is dead. Everyone from the previous universe is apparently completely dead now. Or I'm not sure about it, but like I'm assuming like pretty much everyone that didn't survive I'm honestly, the whole like the multiverse aspect of this, it's a bit confusing, as you know, multiverse stuff tends to be sometimes. So, but anyway, Emporio ends up in this new universe. It's apparently called the Ireneverse because there is the same characters. However, apparently in this universe there is no like Pucci never existed. The whole Joestar like curse never existed of like them being fated to constantly fight Dio and stuff. So there is this different version of Jolene named Irene. There's like this different version of Anastasia. I forgot his name. I'll check during the character ranking. But yeah, so now they all kind of like meet together apparently, because they do mention like this force, gravity, like not the actual force that we know, but apparently this force of gravity that apparently is the cause of like people meeting and stuff, specifically stand users, like why they end up like being drawn to each other and stuff. So then pretty much, yeah, so the part kind of ends with, it's bittersweet, I guess, because the original like timeline is kind of destroyed, I think, but now we're in this new timeline where it's like we have these variants in these characters, but they're a lot happier, I guess. So that is basically where I suppose part 6 ends, as well as I guess the original like timeline of Jojo. And so now going into part 7, I do know that we are going to be in a different universe. And I did check, apparently part 7, 8, and 9, they're all in the same universe, which is good, because I was a bit worried. I was worried like, okay, I really hope they don't do it now where it's like part 7 is this one universe and then we jump to a different universe where it's like a part 8 Jojo with because I did like the aspect of like how each part is kind of connected to each other's with like the whole family aspect of the Joestars and stuff. So I am interested to see like if this all takes place in one universe. I am assuming that means that we are still continuing with the whole Joestar family bloodline. And so I was worried it was just going to be like this Jojo from this timeline, and then there's a different multiverse where it's like this other Jojo, and it felt like it would kind of ruin the whole like aspect of them being Jojos in general, because it's like it wouldn't feel like a family anymore. So that not being the case, I am happy about. So anyway, yeah, so the plot of Stone Ocean, I would give it probably a 3 out of 5, you know, the usual 3 out of 5. I thought it was alright, not like my favorite part, not my favorite plot out of all of the plot basically is Jolene is going after Jotaro's stand and memory disk and Father Pucci. He's trying to like reenact heaven. It's like this, again, it's like a really complicated thing that he has to do, and so it is not as straightforward as like part 3 where they are just like, you know, trying to fight Dio in Egypt and stuff. Again, like part 4 is also better, like going after Kira, I would say, and part 5 with even trying to uncover Diablo's identity. I think that those are all a bit better, I would say, than this, but even so, it's still like 3 out of 5 I would give the plot. In terms of the characters, I will do a character ranking as usual after this, and so the characters, I would say that they're good. I like this cast of characters. Hermes, I think, is good. Emporio, Jolene as the main character, I thought that she is, yeah, all the characters I would say is good. I don't like Pucci. I think that Pucci, out of all the villains, he is probably the weakest one so far, just because his whole character is kind of way too wrapped up in Dio. Like, he doesn't feel like a character of his own, where it's like, yeah, Dio, where he felt like a very good, unique character. Then Kira as well, he was like also a pretty good, unique villain, I would say. Kira's probably one of the best villains. Even Diablo, it's like Diablo, he wasn't as good as like any of the previous villains, but even so, it's like the whole aspect of the split personality with him and Doppio, I still thought was good. He still also had like this menacing vibe to him, which I did like. And Pucci, like the Pillar Men, also it's like these characters that they're so above humans that it's like they feel very, very strong, just like their presence alone. So, but Pucci just feels like this, like another. He feels like Vanilla Ice from Part 3, or just any other one of like Dio's subordinates that are just working for him, that are just like, okay, they want to defeat the Joestars to be like as revenge for Dio, and as well as like he specifically I guess wants to enact the plans that Dio originally had. So I don't really like Pucci as a villain. He's not really great. But besides that, I do like all the other characters, I would say. So yeah, in terms of characters, I would go with like a solid 7 out of 10. I would say pretty good characters. And yeah, in terms of these settings, I like the prison. I think that Green Dolphin Street Prison is pretty good. It's a nice setting, definitely, to be in a prison. This part definitely has the least amount of like, it's probably on the same level as like part 1, where it's like we're not really doing a lot of like world traveling or anything like that, where in part 2, again, they went from like America to Mexico to Italy and stuff, to Rome, I think at the end, that's where it ended or something like that. And then in part 3, obviously, you had like the whole world journey from like all the way from Japan to Egypt. In part 4 all takes place in Morio, but Morio is like this pretty unique location. And then part 5 is like all traveling across all of Italy, I would say. So this part, it is like kind of on the same level of, it's like kind of similar, I guess, to part 4, where it all takes place in one area. I would say that I like the prison area. It does feel different from Morio, in like prison arcs in general for like series are pretty good, I would say. So I did enjoy having a prison setting for once. That was pretty cool. And other than that, the other settings, I guess, you know, there's some like nice marshlands. I guess there is the city of Florida. It feels pretty unique, I guess, somewhere that we haven't really seen yet. And the final area, the Kennedy Space Center, it was fine. It wasn't really one of my favorites, but yeah, overall the settings, I would say that they were pretty good. I would say just another 7 out of 10. In terms of art style, I like the art style, actually. I think this is probably my favorite art style out of all the parts. I think that this one's maybe because it looks so much more. This is the most recent part. It looks the most modern, I would say. There is like, they do use some CGI at times, which doesn't look the best, I'll say, but the actual art style does look, and there are moments where the animation doesn't look great, but I would say the actual art style itself does look very nice. So I would give it a 7.5, very good, I would say. In terms of the action and like the tactics they use, I would say that this part has like, you know, good moments, I would say. I think that a lot of the stands in this part, I think I probably liked a bit better than part 5. Part 5, there was a decent amount of stands where it felt very repetitive, with like the characters of them all being assassins going after Bucciarati's gang. So I do think that at the very least this part, it's like each character that is at least going after, like they do feel, some of them do feel similar, where it's just like these people that Pucci told to go after, or like they're just characters that Pucci manipulated through like his stand in order to kill Jolene and like the rest of her friends and stuff. So, but I do think that this part still, the characters, they felt like, I think the action is tied to like the stand users themselves as well. So, but yeah, I would say the action, this part, I would give like probably like a 7. Like I'm thinking like a 6.5 to 7. It's like between good and pretty good. And I think I'm going to be harsh with that. I'm just going to call it good. I would say good action, 6.5. And yeah, in terms of the worst thing is probably just Pucci. Again, I don't really like him as a villain that much. I would give him probably, honestly, I'm going to be a bit harsh. I'm going to give him like a 4.5. I'm going to say it was not good. I'm not going to call him bad, but he just wasn't really that great in my opinion. So 4.5 for Pucci. In terms of the best thing, I would say that the best thing was probably, I'm not sure, but I did really like the prison aspects, as well as, I don't know, there's good moments throughout the part, I would say, but probably my favorite thing was maybe I don't know, I like Weather Reporter, he was good. Anastasia, I like the side characters as well. They're like good at the character of Jolene as well. She's a good protagonist and stuff. So, but I think probably my favorite thing was I don't know, I guess the prison itself, like the prison arc and stuff. That was probably my favorite. I would give that like. I give like a 7.5. The actual like prison aspects of it, I thought it was like I like prison stuff in general, so this was no different. It was just another kind of prison story that I did like, and so I would give like a 7.5 for the prison aspects. I also gave a 7.5 for the art style, so I guess I'll say a 7.5 for the art style and the prison aspects. I'll say so. Yeah, that is all of the scores. So I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to about a 6.5, but I think I am going to give it a bit higher than that. I think I'll give it probably like a 7 out of 10. I pretty much give like most of the JoJo parts, I would say a 7 out of 10. And yeah, I would say that this part is about another 7 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty good part, and so it will make the actual final JoJo ranking, like for all the parts that I end up doing, that'll make it interesting because I will have to actually probably decide which one. Like a lot of them I did end up giving 7 out of 10s to, so it will be interesting to see how they compare to each other. So yeah, but I would give this one a 7 out of 10. I think the series as a whole, I would probably rate like about a 7 out of 10. I think it is a pretty good series. It's got like a lot of good stuff to it. There is just some stuff bringing it back in, like holding it back in each part, but still the series is definitely a 7 out of 10. Hopefully Steel Ball Run will raise my opinion of the series as a whole. And yeah, I am also, I don't think I'm going to keep on using the King Crimson clip every time. I think that was just a special thing for part 5, I would say. I think just I'm probably going to continue with, because I don't know, I'm still worried about like copyright, and I feel like at some point, I do know that like at the moment the video didn't get copyrighted, but I do know that like later on it is possible that in the future just like it could get copyrighted. So I just kind of, I don't know, I'm still a bit worried about it, and I'm hesitant to use like actual video clips because I do not really want to have to deal with copyright. So that would, maybe in the future, again, we'll at some point in the future, maybe I'll start using clips for videos, and I will switch over to using the King Crimson clip. But for now, we're just sticking with the actual image, I would say. So, but yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments, and I'll maybe possibly check it out. But that said, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's leave it at that.